Welcome to the Claus YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure and more stable world.
Hello and welcome to Strategic Frontlines, the YouTube channel of Center for Land Warfare Studies. Today we are going to discuss the role of China in Operation Sindoor, how it actually factored into the entire conflict. And to discuss this, we have with us two prominent, eminent experts who are sitting to my left, starting Professor Kondapalli from the JNU, and we have Ambassador Kantha, who has had tremendous experience in China. So without wasting any further time, I would like to straight away throw the first question to the two experts of ours. Both can give their initial comments, and then thereafter I'll have certain additional comments to you. Sir, a very warm welcome to you for this podcast. My first question is, how exactly has China helped during Op Sindoor? We are aware that China has been helping Pakistan right from 1947-48. If you go over the history, only the nature of help has been slightly different. But this time round, I found that it is more actively collaborated with Pakistanis, to the extent that there was some movements done along the northern front as well, in terms of not really troops, but in terms of other activities which fall into the grey zone category. So over to you, Professor Kondapalli, and then I'll have Ambassador Kantha speaking on it, sir.
Delighted to be part of this podcast, the Claus, on the issue of Chinese support to Pakistan. What we see is, unlike in 1965 conflict between India and Pakistan, or 71 or 1999 Kargil, we see today more explicit support from China, and in three domains, to my mind. One is in the diplomatic sphere, second in the military sphere, third is in terms of disinformation campaign. And in the first diplomatic sphere, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi called up his Pakistani counterpart, Mr. Ishaq Dar, on April 25th, 3 days after the Pahalgam terror attacks, and reiterated the ironclad friendship between the two countries, as well as suggesting that Pakistan's security, sovereignty, territorial integrity issues should be protected. So that is a huge diplomatic support for Pakistan. And then there is also the 1267 Sanctions Committee in the United Nations. And in that, when a draft was moved with the resistance front, which took initially the responsibility for the Pahalgam terror attacks, Li Changxie, the Chinese official, he removed the resistant front and included the Baluch Liberation Army in those drafts. So that is a huge, global support that China provided, not just at the bilateral level, but also at the global level. I think that created some emboldening kind of movement for the Pakistani side. And in terms of its narrative build-up on terrorism and other things. Second area where the Chinese have supported Pakistan is in the crucial sphere of military area. And here cumulatively Pakistan procured about $21 billion of arms from China, including about 81% of its arms traced back to China. These include the J-10 fighter aircraft, J-10C fighter aircraft. 22 of them out of 36 have been in the Pakistani inventory. There is also the JF-17, which are licensed manufactured in Kamra Aeronautical factory, and there is the in the Navy, in the other sectors. We have also seen very active Chinese support in terms of technical backup on the enhanced range of missile systems, both tactical as well as strategic. Strategic at the Fatehganj factory close to Rawalpindi, the Chinese have been assisting the Pakistani scientists. At the tactical level, there is the Python-based PL-15E, which is the Israeli kind of support that was given since the 90s. And here, ironically, they've been mentioning about Chinese-developed J-10C. This is a LAVI project, Israeli Aircraft Industries developed LAVI project, which went to China.
That's interesting.
And it is interesting also the Islamic Republic of Pakistan using Jewish technologies extensively.
I think the world should know about that. That there are no clear-cut, hard ideological divides when it comes to fighting.
Indeed, as far as the weapon systems is concerned, anywhere from anywhere, President Xi Jinping has been criticizing Israel, but much of the Chinese technologies came from Israel. The drones, the air-to-air missile systems, the aircrafts, the various others. So the military-related one was which emboldened the Pakistanis. Of course, they also received the drones from Turkey, the Sindoor and others. But nevertheless, this is a very crucial factor.
I just want to interrupt there. About Sindoor, I believe there were no evidence as such of this missile being there before the Op Sindoor. So, do you think this got transported to them after the Pahalgam attack?
Between April 22nd and May 6th, when the strikes happened, Operation Sindoor has been commenced. We did see a Turkish destroyer landing in Karachi.
Okay.
We also saw heavy transports landing in Pakistan from Turkey. So that is
a possibility.
Turkish President Erdogan has mentioned about the solidarity with Pakistan in all spheres, including in the military sphere. So that is a circumstantial evidence. And in terms of the destruction of the drones that Indian military had, we do see the Sindoor as part of the evidence in this, including PL-15E, which landed as duds. So the Chinese third aspect is disinformation campaign. If you look at the Chinese press, media, millions of videos are floating around with one specific obsession, which is that J-10C is superior than Rafale, and J-10C should be sold to potential customers from abroad. They have not spoken about terrorism. They have not spoken about any other, including the airfields strikes by the Indian Air Force in Pakistan. None of these were mentioned. They did not mention the HQ-9, all of them destroyed in the airstrikes. And this suggests that it is a one-sided. So it is basically how to test the weapon systems and how to sell these weapon systems to other customers. So this third aspect of disinformation campaign was very intense in China, and even today, despite overwhelming evidence, they still stick to this position that Indian armed forces were not really well equipped, and there is also the superiority of the Chinese weapon systems. So it's a one-sided. They have not provided any satellite imageries, unlike the DGMO who provided the satellite imageries of specific airfield striking, or the PL-15E photographs of landing in the Indian side. So it's all one-sided and heavily biased Chinese approach.
Yeah, so there were 2-3 issues which Professor Kundapalli has raised. So while whatever he has covered, I think by and large now everybody is aware of it. So I would like you to comment on 2-3 issues. Firstly is the compulsion of Turkey. Turkey was having I won't say a brilliant relationship, but if you look at the trade, we had a good trade going on. It was around $8 billion, and suddenly during this particular campaign, I would say it would be as good as putting the boots on ground, in the sense they gave their all the drones, and there are, I believe, reports that initially it was difficult for these guys to operate them. So probably there was a technical help also available from Turkey to ensure that these drones are used by them effectively, which ultimately failed miserably. Your comment on the role of Turkey here a little bit, and also the role of Quad is now being questioned by many. Although we know that Quad was more of a economic kind of a initiative, but we were doing a lot of exercises in Malabar, joint exercises off the coast of Australia, etc., etc. So now internally, I'm talking of within the country, there are some elements which are questioning whether these multilateral forums are really going to be of any help to India. So these two aspects you could also cover in your comments besides what he has already spoken about.
Before I come to these two questions, if I could add something on role of China, because that's very important.
Yeah.
Professor Kondapalli has already given
Yeah.
fairly detailed response to your earlier question. I think what we need to bear in mind that there is very strong strategic nexus between China and Pakistan, which has remained durable right since early 1960s. And China's policy is essentially to build up Pakistan's strategic and conventional capabilities so that it can keep India off balance. But China avoids getting directly involved in military conflicts, and that has been the history of conflicts in 1965, 1971, and Kargil in 1999. But diplomatically, it has given strong support earlier also. Compared to earlier support, Kargil was little different. They were little
neutral, I believe.
Little ambivalent. This time there was a marked pro-Pakistan tilt, no doubt about it. But my own assessment is that Chinese remain cautious in their diplomatic stance. Telephonic conversations between Wang Yi and his counterpart Shantar, these signals that we support sovereignty and territorial integrity, that's fairly routine in China-Pakistan
relationship.
Interaction. When it comes to the comment by spokesperson of Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs on 7th May, after we had struck 9 terrorist targets in China, it was quite moderate. They described India's action as regrettable, which is, compared to terminology they use elsewhere, condemnation, etc., was relatively moderate. And then they came to that they expect both sides to exercise restraint, etc. And that language of restraint continued. It was only on 10th May that Foreign Minister Wang Yi had a telephonic conversation with the INSA. And the readout from Chinese Foreign Office again on that was quite moderate. In fact, they applauded certain comments made by NSA Dole in that conversation. Of course, when it comes to UN Security Council, our understanding is that they supported Pakistan without going out of the way to push the Chinese Pakistani narrative there. So diplomatic stance was pro-Pakistan without being strongly anti-India, because they don't want to send those signals to India at this point in time. When our relations are going through a period of rebuilding, which is important for them also. But we should pay greater attention to their military support, which was very substantial.
Very substantial.
And there are certain, I think, lessons we need to derive from that. There's no doubt about the fact that Indian Air Force came out trumps on the whole. But the narrative Professor Kondapalli referred to about J-10C, action involving Rafale aircraft on our side, it's not limited to China. In fact, it's a very strong narrative in West as well.
Internationally,
yes, internationally. So we should not discount it only as Chinese narrative. there are no 2-3 aspects of this we should pay close attention to. One, it was not just a question of military hardware being deployed, and China, in fact, sort of almost gloating in the social media about so-called success of
their equipment, etc.
equipment against frontline Western equipment. For the first time, they were pitted against each other. So combat experience was very important for them. But equally important, I feel that the fact that China and Pakistan had been working very closely together, including exercise Shaheen since 2011. China was sharing military doctrine and tactics with Pakistan. And this was, I'm told, this is something you people understand better, but people who know, they tell me that this was evident. The latency was positioned on 7th morning, drones, net-centric warfare, so the language, tactics being used. So this is something going ahead we'll have to keep in mind. Third aspect is that I have absolutely no doubt about the fact that data coming out of 4 days of military operations will be fully shared with China. And they will take steps to plug the gaps in Pakistan's defense infrastructure, especially the air defense system. There's no doubt about the fact that HQ-9 didn't perform well. So did the American air defense system, which you also used by Pakistan.
Although they were slightly legacy.
But point is that our air force could penetrate Pakistani air force. So some of this they will try to improve. So we have a situation that as we talk about new normal in our dealings with Pakistan, we have carved out much greater space for conventional operation under nuclear overhang. Likewise, there will be a new normal in China-Pakistan military collusion. We'll have to bear that in mind. And also the fact that we'll have to deal with two live borders, Western frontier and Northern frontier, has its own implications, you know what better than I do. So, in some ways, our deterrence vis-a-vis China and Pakistan has been further complicated. And we'll have to
work
keep that in mind. We'll have to work on that. Now, coming to Quad, Quad, there was no expectation that Quad will get involved, and we wouldn't have liked that to happen either. In fact, even in case of a standoff with China in Eastern Ladakh, there was no expectation or no desire, in fact, in India that Americans should get involved. I think best was getting some intelligence, etc. Incidentally, the reports that Chinese were sharing intelligence with Pakistan.
That's right.
And deployment of NATO. Yes. So that's also another important aspect. So what we are worried about is not really non-involvement of Quad, which is not really expected, but certain position President Trump took.
Yes, those
because,
were quite.
He crossed several red lines, which we have,
including
the way they claimed the mediatory role for USA, comments on Kashmir, equating India and Pakistan, linking our position hostilities with trade issue. I think that was a little disturbing, which should make us think about the whole salience of external balancing vis-a-vis China.
Correct.
Coming to Turkey, frankly, I doubt that this hardware was supplied after. It's not just a question of hardware. Hardware also comes with some training. It's not that you can just. It's not plug and play kind of thing. So I suspect Turkey had already provided those drones to Pakistan. Turkey and Pakistan have
that of course is known.
So background of relations. We have responded quite strongly, which should convey certain signals to Turkey. But As a former diplomat, my suggestion will be we should not write off Turkey.
Okay.
Turkey is an important player, and there have been problems earlier with some other countries which are very close to us now.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm referring to some Gulf countries,
yeah.
for instance.
Correct.
So things change.
Yeah,
so
of
we should
course.
not write off Turkey.
Of course. Having discussed both a little bit of diplomacy, a little bit of what the China did as far as Op Sindoor is concerned, of course there is much more to uncover as far as China's role is concerned. But you will also find that China is operating on other multiple fronts to ensure that India gets hemmed in into South Asia and remains hyphenated to Pakistan, Bangladesh, which we are trying to dehyphenate from and emerge as some kind of a major say in the global world order. Also, that recently the Planning Commission announced that we are now the fourth largest economy formally as per the IMF and the World Bank. So, given this kind of a reality, what do you think should be the I would say three-front strategy as far as India is concerned, both in terms of kinetic and non-kinetic measures in the future? Because this is not going to stop here at Op Sindoor. There is going to be more of such actions taking place, whether through the proxy of Pakistan or whether through grey zone activities in China. So, do you see the possibility of India opening some additional fronts for China to dehem ourselves from this South Asia pressure? So, and first you, and then we'll have Professor Kondapalli speaking on this.
You're absolutely right that China would like us to remain bogged down in South Asia. And China would also like to make us remain bogged down on land borders.
Absolutely.
Because this is one area
Correct.
where we are devoting a lot of resources since events of summer of 2020, and what has happened during Operation Sindoor, though it was mainly Air Force that played an active role, but need to mind both western borders with Pakistan and northern borders with China clearly has gone up. So we are in a two live border situation. So this we'll have to prepare for that. Number one. Number two, we have called Pakistan's nuclear blackmail.
Yeah.
That despite your nuclear capability, we have space and ample space for conventional operations to punish you for your subconventional operations. Their support to terrorism, etc. Now this message, I'm sure, will be studied very carefully by Pakistan and China. We should look at that as a collusive threat.
Yeah.
A collusive threat doesn't mean that they will be attacking simultaneously
Of course.
on two borders. There are so many other ways of collusion.
Like I said, there could be grey zone activities.
Yeah, so there are so many other ways of collusion. So that's a given that this collusive threat has become more pronounced today. And as we have carved out space for more conventional operations, corollary is that we need to build up our conventional capabilities.
That's very important, I think.
This should not be ignored. If you look at the data, I look at data coming out of PRS legislative research. They give fairly detailed analysis of defense budget. Defense budget as percentage of government expenditure has fallen from about 17.1%.
It's about 13.
Yeah, to 13% in BE 25-26.
Absolutely.
Now, this situation is not tenable.
That's right.
When you have heightened concerns about two of your potential adversaries which are acting in collusion, I think this requires a different level of allocation of defense resources. So we have to in some way go back to drawing board, how to deal with this collusive threat, how to deal with this two live border situation, including revisiting some of our earlier policies, including on Agniveer, for instance.
Thank you, sir. Professor Kondapalli, this de-hemming, as we are I'm calling it. It may be a new term possibly today in this podcast. Is that we need to price out China from this dynamics of India-Pakistan conflict. I was talking about the two-front strategy being presented to China, and simultaneously ensuring that Pakistan also gets a two-front look, so that our eastern, that is our western border and his eastern border, become that much more vulnerable, and we are that much more stronger, so that we can focus on a primary adversary. So, with this in view, do you think what would be our approach to a Taiwan contingency of China, as opening a front for China, and also something on the western borders for Pakistan?
There is a Chinese ancient strategy called Hashiao Kungta,
Okay.
which basically means cooperate with the small to counter the big. So they apply this to South Asian region. Out of these 36 ancient stratagems, they have this. And we have seen the Chinese help to many smaller South Asian countries in this regard.
Absolutely.
So that fits into the scheme of things that China had. The Communist Party of China had the balancing strategy towards India, and it also fits into this issue of hyphenation. Then there is the community of shared destiny, as they used to call, and Pakistan is a member of that community of shared destiny between China and Pakistan. So at the political level, there is this. At the military level, the PLA has three positions on South Asia. One is that they think India wants to dominate South Asia, and so the concept of cooperating with the small to counter the big comes in. The PLA annual reports also mention a second aspect, that is India wants to be a global power. And so the policy option they suggest is to confine India to South Asian region by the military sales and other things. And thirdly, they also say India wants to dominate the Indian Ocean region. And for this, they have the Djibouti naval base, the Godar base part for 45 years, Hambantota for 99 years lease, and other preparations that they have in Riam base in Cambodia, the other initiatives. So PLA in its annual report suggests these things to counter India. In order to counter these aspects, India has begun in 2009. I remember General Kapoor mentioning about the two-front war under nuclear threshold in 2009, and quite a long period of time, 16 years, we have been preparing for this contingency. We deployed the S-400 between Pakistan and China and worked wonders in the current Operation Sindoor campaign. There is also the other preparations that India had taken in terms of leapfrogging into Central Asia and the Quad and other things. In addition to neighborhood first policy that India had assiduously built up in the last 11 years. So India is also trying to counter these, and Sagarmala Indian Ocean diplomacy also helps in this process. How do the Indian side counter these aspects of China in terms of Taiwan? Now, in 1950, we had a one China policy, what is called India model, was cobbled up in April 1950. And then subsequently, so it says there is only one China and Taiwan is an inalienable portion of China. So that has not changed for over a long period of time. And in 2018, when Dr. Manmohan Singh visited China, we mentioned about two oppositions, that is opposing Taiwan independence and opposing, I don't remember the other things, but it's basically the independence related. But of course, there has been some change recently after Nancy Pelosi's visit. The MEA made a statement suggesting we want stability in the Taiwan Straits because of our own trade with this region getting affected in any militarization of the Taiwan Straits. So there has been some momentum forward. We have had exchanges, parliamentarians, the former chiefs have gone to attend a big conference in Taiwan a couple of years ago. The army chief, former army chief, the naval chief, and the Air Force chief. So it's an indicator that things are now moving forward, and the Taiwanese have something like $8.2 billion of trade. But most important, the PSMC had concluded a semiconductor pact with the Tata Electronics in Dholera in Gujarat. We have also 5 more projects on semiconductors, mainly with Taiwanese, but also with Micron from United States and others. This is a new dimension. For the safety of the semiconductor industry, we also require to expand and provide protection for that kind of industry in the Taiwan Strait crisis, in any crisis in future. As we are a major beneficiary in terms of the semiconductor industry, we are now moving in terms of the chips production by this year. So there is a requirement for revising our policy in the light of what China had also done in the Pakistan-related matters. It's not just Pakistan. We also hear from Chinese scholars like Hu Shusheng, Liu Zhongyi, and others that Bangladesh, Nepal, Afghanistan. It's interesting that Foreign Minister Wang Yi organized a trilateral meeting with Afghanistan and Pakistan recently after the Operation Sindoor. And this indicates to the strengthening of what they call as Trans-Himalayan Quad and the China-Indian Ocean Initiative. They want to be part of the Indian Ocean. They are sending a lot of submarines, and during the Operation Sindoor, we had 246 fishing vessels from China observing the Indian naval operations in Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea. So this is a new thing that we witnessed during the Operation Sindoor in the maritime domain. That suggests we need to revise our policies regarding Taiwan, South China Sea, and also explore the opportunities for sale of BrahMos in the region. We did sell to Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia. What about Taiwan in terms of sales? So even though Taiwan has better equipment like the Xiongfang cruise missiles, nevertheless, one also should explore the possibility of arms transfer.
Yeah, especially the new generation BrahMos which is coming up. I think that would attract a lot of attention. And with that, my last question to both of you, and also a concluding remark, so because we are running out of time. The first thing is, this seemed to be like a Chinese test laboratory of its equipment. 80%, all of you have said that 80% of the equipment was Chinese. Has China been able to succeed in this experiment, or it has to go back to the drawing boards and look at its equipment very seriously? And the second thing is your final comments on how do we see this entire region moving ahead, both all three, India, China, Pakistan, and Bangladesh also could be added into your comments. A quick 2 minutes from both of you, sir. So start with you.
No, on to what extent the Chinese military hardware performed well, at this point in time, it's very difficult to make a definitive assessment.
Okay.
We are still in the period of fog of war.
Okay.
There are operational reasons why details cannot be shared even by our side, and there is a definite, exaggeration coming from China and Pakistan, which needs to be discounted. But personally, I feel that we need to take this possibility that China and Pakistan will jointly learn lessons from Pakistan Air Force's performance vis-a-vis our Air Force and take remedial actions, plug the loopholes. I think we should take that very seriously. Coming to
The prognosis.
broader context, first on Taiwan, my own feeling is that we have to focus more on what we're doing with Taiwan in terms of our economic, technological investment links. Military domain is something
that's of
we
course.
have to be,
Yeah.
I don't think we are going to rush into that, because that will be even it's not really our responsibility. This is something Americans and others, Japan, they have to take care of that. Role we can play in any Indo-Pacific conflict
Would be in the
centering
IOR.
on Taiwan Strait will be very limited.
Yeah.
So let's be clear about it. We shouldn't raise expectations, because that will lead to major problems down the road. Final point I would like to make that we are in fact perhaps in a more difficult situation today, because the fact of China-Pakistan collusive action has come to the fore, and I have no doubt that China will double down and they will provide their more advanced platforms. The
Systems.
J10C was
they
supplied
have.
only to Pakistan, it was not supplied to others.
Yeah.
But there are platforms like J20 is still
Yeah.
fighters, they have not given to anyone.
Yeah.
So let's see, I think we'll have to watch that space very carefully.
Absolutely.
In terms of the Chinese military equipment, most of them have not really performed well in the Operation Sindoor related campaign. We have seen the HQ-9s, Winglung drones, PL-15E, JF-17. The Pakistani side had admitted to two JF-17 crashes, destructions. And so we, at the moment, it is not clear, but we can say definitely that the Chinese equipment did not perform well in terms of the battlefield experience and battlefield performance. One of the key areas is China still lacks the engines for the aircraft. The J10C had the RD-93 Russian supplied. The JF-17 had RD-93. J10C had WS-88 Kunming engine and other variants. The thrust levels for these are lower than compared with the SNECMA of Rafale or the AL-41F for the Su-30s. So definitely there is an advantage in terms of performance indicators for Indian Air Force and Army in terms of the combat related matters. This of course we need to revisit the performance of the equipment. So it provides the opportunity for India to highlight, even though China had stated their focus or hijacking of the air combat, J-10 versus Rafale, and no mention about terrorism, no mention about any one of those nuclear-related matters. Even though China had increased its nuclear supplies to Pakistan. If you remember the IAEA NSG 2009 around that time. So they have asked for the clean waiver for Pakistan as well, and blocked the Indian trading in technology and uranium from these bodies. There is also the Kahuta plant and fissile material enhancement by Pakistan, and more long-range missile systems that China is supplying to Pakistan. So those are clear indicators of the cooperation between China and Pakistan. So there is that danger that India still has on the Sino-Pakistan all-weather friendship and others. So India actively needs to counter this by strengthening the two-front war under nuclear threshold related issue. And Prime Minister Modi mentioned in his televised speech about those three red lines on state, non-state differentiation cannot be accepted, nor the nuclear blackmail, or the discussion can only be on POK. And here the Chinese role is also important because China had invested in the CPEC projects and also has been sending so-called security guards, some 36,000 of these in the POK, Gilgit-Baltistan, in hydroelectricity projects and others. I think India needs to take it up in an active manner on these POK-related aspects.
Okay, so I think we have come to the end of our podcast. We've also overshot our time. Before I let you all go, just in one word, it's kind of a rapid fire. Kirana, your views.
The evidence is still not clear, but DGMO Air mentioned that we did not hit the air base there. So officially we have no role in terms of the nuclear fallout radiation, which the IAEA had rejected. But nevertheless, there is some smoke, if
there is
not
some
fire.
smoke in the fire. Bholari, the extent of damage which has now been projected by New York Times, it kind of validates our stand. So your views final on the kind of operation which India launched on.
Even Western media, finally they're acknowledging, both Washington Post and New York Times had detailed stories that based on satellite imagery, that extent of damage done by Indian Air Force to Pakistan's military installation much more than what Pakistan could inflict on our facilities. So I think clearly our Air Force has come well ahead in that domain.
Thank you, sirs, for this wonderful podcast. We hope to continue our associations in the future as well, both online and also offline as we are doing it today, which will be broadcasted in a day or so. Thank you very much and Jai Hind, sir.